So let's open up your Bibles to Deuteronomy chapter 30. 30. No, we got stuck in the mud. It was fun. We actually left off last week with verse 29 of chapter 29. And it's this verse that I've used it oftentimes. And it basically says the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of His law. Amen. From that, I was going to dive right into it, but there's some things I wanted to, like I said, clean up before we get to there. So I'm going to jump ahead now to chapter 30 and verse 1 through 6. If you'd read with me, that'd be great. Now it shall come to pass, when all these things come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you. You remember the two tops of the hills. Somebody was carrying a picture of the hills. Who was that? Is that you, Eric? You still have it with you? You can show everybody what the... So you can see what he's talking about, where certain of the tribes were on one side, and then certain of the tribes were on the other side. One side was hollering blessings, the other one was hollering cursings. And that's what he was talking about there. The blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind among all the nations where the Lord your God drives you. And you return to the Lord your God and obey His voice according to all that I command you today. You and your children with all your heart and with all your soul, that the Lord your God will bring you back from captivity and have compassion on you, and gather you again from all the nations where the Lord your God has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there He will bring you. Then the Lord your God will bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. That is to make it tender again. And then the first half of chapter 30 finishes up in verses 7 through 10, and we'll jump into it. Also, verse 7. The Lord your God will put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecute you, and you will again obey the voice of the Lord and do all His commandments which I command you today. The Lord your God will make you abound in all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your body, in the increase of your livestock, and in the produce of your land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over you for good, as He rejoiced over your fathers. And if you obey the voice of the Lord your God, to keep His commandments and His statutes, which are written in this book of the law, and if you turn to the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul. Again, this is Moses' farewell Bible study. But it's more than that, it's a sermon. And Moses is trying to reiterate, remember, or remind, and encourage the body of believers there with the children of Israel as they get ready to cross over the Jordan River and enter into the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey that God said He would bless them with. And really it offers a choice of life or death, much as life today for us offers a choice of life or death. At this point, We've talked about some of these things, the Palestine covenant, that it's not the people, but it's the land. And it's the issues of what the Lord is attempting to do, seeking to do with the nation of Israel. And so at this point is where you get to the heart of the covenant, actually. When you're out there and your land has been destroyed and bitterness has filled your heart because things didn't go the way that you wanted them to go. Things have fallen apart and they're not looking so good. In fact, they're looking pretty bad. When you're in that place, when you're in that position, and when you wake up finally and you smell the coffee, and you turn to me, God says to the people of Israel, when you turn to me, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to fetch you from everywhere, and I'll bring you back to the land. That's God's promise. He goes on to say, your heart is going to be circumcised. It's going to be tender towards me. And the land is going to be fruitful. And there's going to be blessing upon you and curses upon those who come against you. That is, the enemy will be cursed, not you. And this is yet to happen. Israel, it's true. Many of the Jews of the world are back in the land of Israel, but not the majority. But there's coming a time, Matthew chapter 24, verse 31 tells us, when the Lord shall gather the majority. But there's coming a time when the Lord will gather the elect from every corner, it says, from the four corners of the world, and He will bring them back. When? Well, Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 and 32 says it'll happen when Jesus comes back in the second coming. The Jewish people are going to be gathered from every corner of the world, brought back to Israel. So, what's happening today? We're seeing sneak previews of coming attractions. But you see, there's not all going back to Israel. In fact, there's a lot of people that are leaving Israel. And there's probably good reason. God calls if you didn't want to have missiles rain down upon you. But if it wasn't for the Russian Jews coming in, we're told that Israel would be losing the population right now. The rich Israelis are getting out of the country, particularly the young people. They're leaving to come to America and actually to Europe. But the Russian Jews are coming in such a number that the population is actually growing slightly because of the influx of Russian Jews. The funny part is about this is there's a huge question about how many Russians there are there in that place are Jews. Because you see, they don't have to prove their Jewishness. They're just accepted. It's accepted at face value. But there's a great suspicion that many of the Russian Jews are just Russian, that wanted to get out of Russia and claim to be Jews so that they can go to Israel, a much better place actually to be, even with all the fighting. And so there's this tension in Israel, a great influx of Russian Jews, quite possibly. And then also there's a great growth rate in the Israeli Arabs who are Israeli citizens, but actually Jewish population. The absolute, discernible, unquestionable Jewish population is indeed, in fact, shrinking. Because the Jews, even to this day in Israel, are saying, why should we stay here? I mean, as many are headed back to America or going to Europe, the question is foremost on those that are judging and trying to figure out where the Lord wants them to be. But there's coming a day when all of the Jews, we're told, will be gathered from the four corners of the world. And what a day that's going to be. When Jesus comes back, guys, we're seeing it right now. The wondrous sign, the amazing sign. that Jesus said would be an end time sign. That is Israel back in the land. But we haven't yet seen this kind of gathering where from all the outermost parts of the world. And in verse 4 you can see it says, if any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there He will bring you, even of heaven. Anywhere that they are, they will be gathered and fetched. They will come back to the land, and God will circumcise their heart. They will be tender towards the Lord. Right now, the Jews in Israel, for the most part, the vast majority of them, are not really circumcised in the heart. For the most part, they're agnostic. Now in Jerusalem, it's a little bit different because you have a great number of what are known as Orthodox Jews and the ultra-Orthodox. They look kind of like Josh, hanging, walking down, facial hair and stuff. But around the country, Tel Aviv is, you say Jerusalem, there's a work going on. Tel Aviv is one of the most carnal cities in the world today. Israel is a very carnal place, sad to say. But Jerusalem is being taken over by the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox Jews. And they're increasing quite radically because they're having like 18 to 16 kids per couple. They're just going for the big families to populate that group of Jews. And they're increasing quite radically because of the number of kids that they're having. Big families, huge families. Could you imagine having 16 brothers and sisters? But there's also tensions now. Most of them center around the bathroom, but that's just rumor. Not only between the Arabs and the Palestinian Jews, but there's tensions within Judaism. The secular Jews resent the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox Jews. And so we have not yet seen the fulfilling of this prophecy. That's going to happen when they look at him and they say, where did you get those wounds? And he'll say, in the house of my friends. Zechariah tells us. And they're going to turn towards the Lord, and they're going to realize that He's the Messiah. And all of Israel will be saved, it says. 1/3 that survive the tribulation. Zechariah says 2/3 will die during that time. But 1/3 will emerge as silver and gold from the refiner's fire. And they will be ushered into the millennium. That time when the Lord rules and reigns from Jerusalem. 1,000 years of peace. And all the Jews that are alive at that time on the planet, again, will be fetched by the Lord and brought back to Israel, to Jerusalem. And He will rule and reign there. And Jerusalem will be the capital of the millennial kingdom. And the land will change topographically like the Garden of Eden previously. And so God has a plan for the Jew. And this is really important. This is an important point, that if you don't get anything tonight, that you get this. God is not done with the children of Israel. He's not done with the Jew. God has a plan for the Jew. And don't let anybody, there's a lot of people that will tell you different or attempt to tell you different, but don't let anyone tell you different. It's important that there are those that say that God is through with the Jew. It's important to understand what these guys are doing and where they're coming from. But they'll basically say that God's done with the Jew, that there's no plan for Israel. There are those that they've totally bought into the lie of Martin Luther and St. Augustine. What lie is that? Well, Martin Luther was a great man in many ways, but he was very wrong on the issue of Israel. So disappointed was he that the Jewish people didn't respond to the gospel in the early days of the Reformation, that he rethought his position, and he concluded that Jews were a cursed race. That's what he based it off of. And he wrote very hateful books against the Jewish people, wonderful commentaries on Romans and Galatians, and publications many on salvation. But when it came to Israel, he was angry and he was bitter at the Jews, very anti-Semitic. Because of that, Martin Luther's influence in Germany, along with the Catholic influence of Augustine, who at one time in his early writings believed that literally Jesus would rule and reign from Jerusalem. But then later he gave in to the political realities of the Roman Empire reality as it became Christianized, no longer burning Christians at the stake, no longer feeding them to the lions. All that had ceased. It was not happening anymore. When that happened, Christianity was made the official religion. For Emperor Constantine became a Christian and said, from now on, Christianity will be the official religion of the people. And so then all of the writers and thinkers and preachers in those days said, well, we've been preaching about Rome being the center of an evil empire where Antichrist would rule and reign from. Now it seems as though it's a new day, a new era. And Rome is converted to Christianity. And Christianity is the religion of the empire. And so we must have been wrong in our teaching of prophecy, they said, that there would be an Antichrist based in Rome. They started rethinking that. And so they decided to say, after a time, what do these things mean? What is this telling us? It must mean this. They came to this conclusion that those teaching about Rome and the Antichrist and the kingdom for 1,000 years must be all allegorical. That is, not literal, not literally taken that way. And a new school of thought was developed called amillennialism, or no millennium, no real rapture, no second coming in that way. But it's all about inside internal stuff. It's an allegory. And so to our amillennial friends, you have to ask the question, what do you do with all these promises that are given to Israel in the Old Testament? What do you do with them? Do they just disappear? And they'll tell you normally, well, they're just for the church. They're for us. Well, what about the curses? They're for the Jew. Oh, I see. We take all the blessings because they say that Israel and the church are the same. And that the promises and the blessings to Israel have now been transferred to the church. That we are the true Israel. That is, the church is the true Israel. You say, okay, I get it. So let me get this straight one last time. We take the blessings, but we leave them with the curses. Yep. Essentially. And from that theological position of Augustine and then Martin Luther, who was a Catholic, obviously, until he became a Protestant. The first one, actually. But still influenced by his Catholic upbringing. Augustine theology. And it creates in Germany, because the Jews are cursed, Christ killers. It creates the environment for a man named Adolf Hitler to write Mein Kampf. And Nazism to take root as it did. It couldn't have happened otherwise. And so here we see that even in this, God is in control. He uses even what Satan means for evil, the Holocaust, which has its roots in Martin Luther, which has its roots in Augustine, which has their roots in getting away from taking the Bible literally and saying, well, it's an allegory. you can't really take it at face value. And Jerusalem doesn't really mean Jerusalem, but the church, they would tell you. And when it says that the Lord will rule and reign from the holy city, it really means, and what it's really saying is it's from our hearts. But in reality, even what Satan means for evil, God turns for good. Because if it wasn't for the Holocaust, there would never have been and be a modern state of Israel today. 6 million Jews were killed by Adolf Hitler. And it's amazing to me that you see this thing take root where it would not have been possible for Israel to be birthed if 6 million Jews had not been slaughtered. And when they took the vote on May of 1948, it passed in the UN by one vote. 6 million Jews killed, and it made it by one vote. Tell you what you do, give them a sliver of the property. And God knew it would take that. He's in control of everything. It's just amazing. So, you guys are listening to all this. These two guys, Martin Luther and others that stepped forward to bring this about. The hand of God upon the Jewish people at this time. But understanding he still had a plan. And so you might be saying, well, why are you giving us all this, Joe? Because it's important for us to know it. One of the most important points we gave already. But one of the other most important parts is that the way that God has treated Israel is a verification to us that he will treat us the same way. Not the Holocaust or anything like that. But to understand that if God promises that he's going to see Israel through, the same promise will apply to us. 6 million Jews killed, and it made it by one vote. And if you read this Palestinian covenant, which is what we started with in this section, you need to realize that God has a plan for a Jew when you read that covenant. And then know that he's not through with the Jew. And that's important because it means this, that he's not through with you. He's not through with me. God will be faithful to the covenants that he makes. He's not going to break those covenants. If he made a covenant with Israel that will see Israel through, then that same covenant applies to you and to me. He's not through with you. He's not through with me. And God will be faithful to the covenants that he makes and the promises that he gives. He will follow through and do what he's promised to do. And that's why Romans chapter 9, chapter 10, and chapter 11 are there. The promises of God to Israel. God made all those promises to you. And we're sure it's going to come to pass just by looking at the Jew. God is not through with the Jew. He's going to do what he's promised he would do. Guys, he's going to do it. Amen. From here we slide into the first part of chapter 30. And in chapter 28, we saw how that the Lord warned his people that if they turned their back on him and walked away from him, that they would experience some very dire repercussions, that they would find themselves besieged by the enemy from a foreign land coming down like an eagle, and they would crush the city of Jerusalem, this enemy, tear down the walls, and cause the land to be salted, which means, again, unproductive agriculturally. So much so that the people of Israel would go through the severe starvation time ending up eating their dead children, sadly. And then they would be sold again into slavery, sold into Egypt. If indeed they turned their back on the Lord, those were the things that the Lord said would come their direction. And that's exactly what took place. They were scattered, they were persecuted. Wherever they went, there were persecutions launched on them. It didn't matter where they were going. But as soon as they showed up, they were hunted down and basically tortured. Difficulties. And then again in verse 68, just as was prophesied by Moses, he'll be sold back into Egypt again, sold back into slavery. And they were, time and time again. Tens of thousands of Jews were captured by the Romans and were sold off to the Egyptians as slaves. And that is why you still have, even to this day, a Jewish population in Egypt. Most have left over the years, but there still is a Jewish remnant in Egypt, tracing itself back to the days when the Roman Empire was destroying the nation and selling them into slavery. Now, they had been rescued from slavery in the days of Moses. But God would say, if you turn your back on me, you'll end up back in Egypt and into slavery. It's a tough passage, but it's true stuff. Now, chapters 29 and 30, again, this is a brief review of 29 and 28. But you see different stuff coming forth. For God declares what's going to happen to them when they turn away from their rebelliousness and turn back towards Him. And God makes a promise to His people. He makes a covenant with His people. For a covenant is an agreement with a promise. And the covenant is called here in chapter 29 and 30, the Palestinian covenant. This is important because we're not talking about a promise that the Lord is giving to the Palestinian people. No. It's about the land in Palestine. And these agreements that are being made, promises that God made at various times, this one particular one is called the Palestinian covenant because it relates to the land that we know today as Israel. And that's what the arguments hung on between those that were protesting and arguing that the land belonged to Hamas and those that knew that the land belonged to Israel. God, though, has been so good to us. And this was really an issue, a bone of contention that the Lord had with His children. How could it be, or how it could be, that He took such good care of them? But as we saw in chapter 28, they didn't serve Him with gladness, the Lord said. Therefore you will be sent into captivity, and the yoke of the enemy shall be around your neck. The Lord wants me to serve Him with gladness. He wants you to serve with gladness, not out of obligation or out of burden or this is a heavy thing. But rather, He wants us to serve Him with joy and gladness. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And because they didn't do that, because they didn't serve Him with gladness, didn't remember the blessings that had come their way, didn't remember the manna, that they didn't need to grow grain, they didn't need to gather grapes. Manna had come their way day after day after day. And He took care of them. But they didn't realize that. They lost sight of it. So again, why do I give you all this? Well, when you read this Palestinian covenants, you need to realize that God has a plan for the Jew. He's not through with the Jew. And that's important because it means this, that He's not through with you and He's not through with me. God will be faithful to the covenants that He makes, the promises that He gives. He will follow through and do what He's promised to do. Again, that's why Romans 9, 10, 11 are there. They serve as proof for the promises of God to Israel. Now, this brings us back to what you've been waiting for all night. And that's the secret things. Okay? God made all those promises to you. And we're sure it's going to come to pass simply by looking at the Jew. God is not through with them. God has had them hanging around for a long time. In fact, they're the longest country just about that's been in existence. And He's going to do what He promised that He was going to do. He's going to do it. And so God has revealed to you, it says, His law. God has revealed to you His statutes, His judgments. They belong to you and your children forever. These are the revelation of God's desire and God's purposes. And God will for you as a people. Now, there are things that God hasn't revealed to us as of yet. They are the secret things of God. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 29. This also serves as a nice scriptural response to anyone that accuses things of you. You can simply look at them with all sincerity and say, secret things belong to the Lord. But the things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Now, the Apostle Paul, in writing the New Testament, writes often of the mystery that has been hid in times past, but is now being revealed. There are the secret things of God that He is now revealing. He didn't reveal them to the nation of Israel. They weren't revealed in His covenant with those people. But now God is revealing these secret things. One of these glorious secrets of God that He has revealed to the church is Christ in you, the hope of glory. That power that is available for you to live this kind of a life that God has required of us. The power of the Holy Spirit, the resurrection power. And so those glorious things that God has revealed, and once they are revealed to us, they are ours. They belong to us and our children. But they are all there for the purpose of teaching us that we are to walk in the ways of the Lord, doing the word of the Lord. That brings us down to verse 11 in chapter 30. You with me? Where it deals with the choice of life or death. And I think what I'd like to do is forge ahead. What do you say? What do you say, Brian? Verse 11, for the commandment which I command you today is not too mysterious for you, nor is it far off. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will ascend into heaven for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. Nor is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. But the word is very near, and this is, you can see the draws from the New Testament that are similar to the New Testament. Notice it says in verse 14, but the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. See, I have set before you today life and good. I've set life and good before you, death and evil. And that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments, his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away, so that you do not hear, and are drawn away, and worship other gods and serve them, I announce to you today that you shall surely perish. You shall not prolong your days in the land which you cross over the Jordan to go in and possess. I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live, that you may love the Lord your God, that you may obey his voice, and that you may cling to him. For he is your life and the length of your days, and that you may dwell in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them. Again, here in Deuteronomy, we've been hearing Moses reiterating, reminding, and repeating the commands of God to the children of Israel. As most of you know, the people of Israel had been wandering in the wilderness for about 40 years. Now they're about to go over the Jordan River and into the land of promise. But Moses has been told by God that he won't be able to go with them into the promised land. He knows that the time has come when he soon will be taken off the face of the earth up into heaven. And so because he's concerned about the people, and he wants the very best for them, he calls a meeting, and he begins to share with them this lengthy farewell sermon. That's what the book of Deuteronomy is, just one long sermon. And he goes on and on and on and on, reminding them of the law of God, reiterating the commands of the Lord. He wants them to succeed. He wants them to prosper. He wants them to do well. And so consequently, he's sharing his heart. And now as he comes to this point, approaching the end of this farewell sermon, and it's almost as if he pauses here and he sighs, oy vey. And he looks at the congregation in the eye. And it's as though he begins to share from his soul with them in this text. And he says essentially this: you know what to do. You know what to do. You know how you're to live. You know what you're not supposed to do. You know. Here he's been going on and on, repeating the commandments of the Lord. But now it's as though he pauses and he says, guys, kids, you know what to do. And he says there in verse 11, for this commandment which I command you today is not too mysterious for you, nor is it far off. Verse 29. It's not up in the heavens, literally, that you should say, who shall go for us to the heavens and bring it down to us, that we might hear and do it. Who's going to transcend and ascend into the seventh heavens to get the mystical word? Who's going to be able to look into the flickering candle hour after hour with the incense burning, and then finally break through with the divine revelation of the outer third eye? Are you with me? Revealing. Who could it be that can transcend through meditation, through the greater realms of spirituality? That's the way people think today. They think you got to get deeper, you got to go longer, sadly. And it's all about them. That's what they were saying here. Who is going to transcend and ascend to these high places of spirituality and reveal to us the secret mystery? Who? Who will climb Mount Diablo? Reach the summit and chant, and have revealed to them the harmonic convergence. Who? Who will get the wisdom and understanding that they might share it with the rest of us? I don't think so. Because you see, it's not ascending up into the heavens, nor is it crossing over the oceans. Don't say it's beyond the sea. Who will get on a plane and make their way over the Pacific Ocean? Some place in India. Find some ashram with some guru, some swami, sitting there in the lotus position playing Beatles tunes. Who can help us understand the mysteries of religion and spirituality? Guys, that's not what it's about. It's not about becoming a vegetarian. It's not about going to the Himalayas and climbing them. I tried that at Machu Picchu. Doesn't work. To find some ancient Tibetan monastery where the robes are swishing and the gong is gonging. And if you do, then you can be one of the enlightened ones. I don't think so. In fact, you can forget about that. Baloney, Moses would say, or spamoni, or manamoni. That's crazy, we would say. It's not about ascending to the seventh heaven. It's not about crossing over the ocean. But rather, he says, you know what I'm looking for. The word, he says, is very near, verse 14. But the word is very near to you. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart, written on the tablets of your heart, that you might do it, that it might be near to you. How near? Just about as close as it can be. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart. What? It's on the tip of your tongue. It's what you talk about when you teach your children. It's already embedded in your heart. These aren't strange, hard, mystical things. These are commandments, Moses would say. The ones I've been sharing, it's simple. It's right there. How close? It's in your mouth. On the tip of your tongue, it's in your own heart. You know what's true. You know what's right. You're not dumb. You're not blondes. Not all blondes are dumb, you know that. But he would say to the Jews that day, you know, the person who's sitting there at the breakfast table, hour after hour, staring at the orange juice carton. After several hours, someone saw their person sitting there and said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, it says orange juice. Concentrate." But you know, Moses would say, you know what to do. You know it. You know what is right and righteous. The word is already there on the tip of your tongue. It's in your heart. It's what you tell your kids to do. That second grader who's there, pulling the pigtails of the little girl in front of her. She screams out in pain. The teacher makes her way and says to that little boy that day, "Young man, what do you think you're doing?" "Well, I thought it was okay to pull the little girl's hair until they screamed with pain and cried in agony." And the teacher would say, "That's not going to make it. I don't buy it. You know better than that." And we are in a country that should know better than a lot of things. But it doesn't seem to make a difference. You know better. And people do know what is true. That's what Moses is getting at. He pauses after 29 chapters of preaching. Takes a deep breath and he says, "You know what to do." Oh, hasn't changed? No. You know what to do. And you know what's true. And you know that it's true. For in your heart it's already written. In 1964's presidential election, Barry Goldwater ran an ill-fated campaign. It was sloganized with the theme. It went like this, quote, "In your heart you know he's right," unquote. Unfortunately, he got slaughtered by LBJ. But be that as it may, that was his theme. That was his idea. In your heart you know, whether you admit it or not, you know. A lot of people do know in their hearts. In fact, everyone, according to the Bible, does know in his or her heart what is right and what is truth. And that covers a variety of things in our lives. That little voice on your shoulder. You really think that's okay? What you do, you know what to do. And you know that it's true. Even though they might say, no, I didn't really know. An older teacher in philosophy and sociology, and a young teacher. He was a really good-looking guy, Fabio kind of guy. That's who I'm dating myself. But and outside of his classroom, there was a glass windows that he always parked his car right in front of them. A red Corvette convertible Stingray. And all the girls thought he was wonderful, really sickening. But I remember one day in that class when he said, the only absolute is that there are no absolutes. And all those college sophomore mushheads said, wow, that's heavy. Sounds good to me. That means there's no absolute truth, no absolute right or wrong. It's all relative. It's an existential thing. You really can't say categorically that that's good or that's bad. This is right and that's wrong. This is life and that's death. But it all depends. And when he said that, there are no absolutes except there are no absolutes. The only absolute is there is no absolute. And I thought that day, should I take out my Opel Manta? This is years ago. Park there close to his vet, open my trunk, pull out my handy crowbar, and go over where his Stingray was. And bash his windows and pound on his hood and rip up the car. And then watch him come running out. What are you doing, man? Hey, bro, chill. There's no right or wrong. That didn't really happen, guys. But what's right for you may be wrong for me. But what's wrong for me may be okay for you. I'm just doing my thing. It's my thing. I'll do what I want to do. You can't tell me who to sock it to. What's wrong for you is right for me. And this is the way I express myself. I love the beat on Stingrays. And it's all relative. There are no absolutes. You see, here's the things. That's a bunch of garbage. He can say philosophically and intellectually, there are no absolutes. But he has his own set of absolutes, like keep away from my Stingray. People know. And that's what Moses is driving at here. He says, look, you don't have to ascend to some intellectual understanding or spiritual mysticism, or cross the ocean to some ashram or Oxford University. You already know what to do, and you know what is true. You know that it's true. And then he also says, you know what to do. And you know that it's true. You know that it's best for you. You know that it's best for you. People do know. They might not want to admit it, but deep within they know that the best way to live is loving God and keeping His commandments. That's what it comes down to. The loving God and keeping His commandments. What really is so bad about that? And why are people upset with that? Why are people so intimidated by that today? What's wrong with the 10 Commandments? Let me put it this way. People know because the 10 Commandments are how we want everybody else to live. Right? Forget about you. You don't really need them. But you know how you want everybody else to live. How you want everybody else to act. I mean, think about it. Who do you want to move in next door to you? The guy that loves God and honors the 10 Commandments? Or the guy that hates God and believes that the 10 Commandments are completely wrong? Believes in murder and adultery and stealing and coveting and lying and killing? Who would you rather have as a neighbor? The guy that keeps the commandments or attempts to? Or the guy who says, I hate the commandments. I'm going to do the opposite of what they tell me. Watch me. Who would you rather live by? You see, everybody knows in their own heart that it's the best way to live. It's the best thing for you to keep the commandments. You know what to do. You know what is true. You know that it's best for you. Say your car breaks down in LA. It's 12:30 at night. And you're in Compton. You're in East LA. Olea. And you leave your car that's broken down there on the side of a poorly lit street. You've got to get help, so off you go. And after a block or two, you get this sense of feeling that you're not alone anymore. You look really nonchalantly over your shoulder, and you see 4 guys following you, catching up with you. They've got big coats and sweatshirts and hoodies and beanie caps and pants that are falling down a bit. And they're making their way towards guess who? You. Listen, would it make a difference in that situation if you knew for a fact that those 4 guys, those 4 big, huge guys, were coming out of an evening Bible study and praise session and prayer meeting? And if they had their Bibles in their hands, would that make a difference? Would that make you feel a little bit better? A whole lot better? Or would you rather have them come out and have a rap recording session with Snoop Dogg or Eminem or any number of worse ones? Oh, I'd feel great if I knew that they just spent time with Eminem. He's kind of dating me too, isn't he? But you see, we can say, we don't really know which lifestyle is better. We don't know what's good. That's relative. No one can with absolute certainty. That's not true, though. In your heart, you know, and the Bible tells us, you just know. The right way to live is to love God and to do the commands that He has given for you to do. And that's what Moses is saying here. You know what to do. Don't say that you don't understand or that you have to climb some mountain or swim some ocean. Transcend by meditating. Baloney. It's on your heart. It's in your mouth. It's what you talk about to your children. It's what you know to be the truth in the bottom of your heart. It's right near you. It's right in you. You know what to do. And you know what's true. And you know that it's best for you. And that's what Moses is saying. So, choose life. And we'll wrap it up right now and go on from there. But choose life, guys. Notice verse 19, chapter 30. I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. When you look at it this way, choosing life takes on a whole new dimension. Come on out and hang out with us next Wednesday. And we'll wrap this up. Amen. Father,